Hey there, team, and welcome to another update on Iceland and a couple other things I want to share with you. I'm Geology Professor Shawn Willsey. Today's December 23rd. It's about 11:30 in the morning here Mountain Time, and that would put it about 6:30 p.m. over in Iceland. First off, I think I figured out how to make the cursor bigger. So I know several of you may be watching on tablets or other devices had expressed some frustration and just concern about being able to see the cursor when I'm pointing things out. So hopefully you're getting mesmerized by the large yellow cursor now. Maybe the next thing that'll happen is someone will say the cursor's too big. You can't get it right. But thanks for joining me. I want to share a few things. Like a lot of you, I'm busy with the holidays right now, and so there'll probably be a little less of these updates moving forward, unless if something, of course, substantial or big happens. But I'll be a little bit more quiet than I've normally been over the next couple days as we get involved with some family activities and a little bit of travel, like a lot of you. So just know that I'm well, and I hope you're well. But let me start off with something with Nature Eye. So if you were with me yesterday on Friday, we did a live stream flight over the flow, which is cooling and crystallizing right now, and I want to make you aware of some fun opportunities with them. First of all, in full transparency, I am not sponsored by Nature Eye. They reached out to me a few weeks ago, probably saw the opportunity based on some of the updates I was doing, that they could get the word out a bit with their company, because they're a newer company. The technology's quite new, and so I look at it as a very mutually beneficial relationship. They have a tool and a platform that's helpful to me in explaining geology. If I can fly around that landscape in real time and explain it to my viewers and share that with them, that's awesome. And they, on their end, are looking for ways to promote their product and their business. And so I do have something here I want to offer you. So people who view my YouTube channel, if you want to use Nature Eye, if you want to give this as a gift, or if you want to try it out on your own, there is a code you can use. So my name, SHAWN, that's the coupon code you can use to get 10% off a flight that you might want to do wherever. If you go to Explore on their homepage, and I'll make sure I put this all in the video description. If you're interested in other locations besides Iceland, you can peruse those. So Cambodia, South Africa, Machu Picchu, Washington, US, Botswana, Kenya, and then northern Iceland. So they have a couple locations. I would guess that more will show up as time goes on and as this company grows. But you can select a location, and then what you want to do in order to get the discount, and the flights are $95 for 30 minutes. So for 30 minutes, you or someone that you purchase this for will be able to remotely fly a drone around this landscape. Maybe there's animals in Africa like you can see on the screen there. Maybe it's big volcanoes. They can take photos. Those photos all get uploaded to them, and those are their photos. There is a remote drone operator that is sort of in the background that's monitoring it, so you're not going to crash this thing into the side of a hill or fly it off into the ether or whatnot. But in order to take advantage of this promotion, you can go to gifts and come down to gift certificate, put in all your pertinent information there, and then under coupon right here, this is where you would want to type in my name to get that 10% discount. So it's good for 30 days. Once you put it in, that coupon's good for 30 days. And again, you can either give this gift certificate, you can redeem it yourself, and you can take that flight, or you can give it to someone else, whatever you want to do. But a great opportunity and a nice little savings package that they offered us. So just wanted to make you aware of that. So let's get right to our Iceland update, though. And we'll start with some of the earthquake data. This update's a little bit short, like a lot of you, busy with the holidays, limited bandwidth, but I still wanted to put something together because I thought there were some interesting things that have transpired over the last day or so. A couple of news items that I think are worth mentioning, and then I put together another little sketch that might help summarize what's been happening. So if you're having trouble visually figuring out what actually is going on in Iceland, hopefully my little sketch or model will be of some use. So here's our earthquake data over the last 24 hours. And so you can see, yeah, 24 hours worth of data. Not a lot of earthquakes there. Over magnitude 2s, there's none. If we go to magnitude 1 and above, there's a couple in there. And it's mainly in the places we'd expect to see. So again, we're seeing, and we've seen this pattern before, we're seeing a period of quiescence in terms of seismic activity because the magma is really not pushing into a new area and breaking rock. And so this is probably, again, some of the magma may be cooling. It could be just changes to the stress conditions. Could be some movement of the magma in the subsurface, but it's not moving into a new location. If we see this magma moving into some place it wasn't, that's when we'd expect to see an uptick there. We still have the little cluster of quakes between this latest eruptive episode and the one in 21, 22, and 23, the Fagradalsfjall eruptions, which are a little bit further east than these quakes here. So these are worth kind of monitoring. Again, I don't see the frequency or the depths that would indicate that they're necessarily related to, you know, magma ascent or some new eruptive period or anything like that. But we just want to keep an eye on those and see if those change or if they stay more or less at those levels moving forward. Of course, the GPS data is something that we've been focusing on quite a bit here. And so if we look at our power plant GPS data, again, going through after the November 10th earthquake swarm and the movement of the magma system to the east into that dike, we see that the area was uplifting. A little gap here in the data due to some really lousy weather. And then the big event was the eruption on Monday, the 18th, which coincides with this point here on the graph. But here's what we're really looking at here is all the data points since the eruption began and ended. And we can see this uptick here. And so this is what we're tracking over the next few days, possibly weeks, is what will it take? You know, what will happen as these data points, if these continue to rise? Are we going to reach some critical threshold where the magma is pressurized and is in a highly primed situation where it's ready to erupt and break out again? And of course, another big question with that would be not just when, but is it going to erupt in the same location, or would we see maybe an eruption in another site? So we'll keep tabs on this moving forward, because this is probably one of our biggest piece of monitoring data that we have at this time. The Met Office doesn't have an update for today. At least there was nothing over yesterday, so I've not included anything from the Met Office, but you can go check that out as well if you'd like to over the next few days, over the holidays. And then I had a viewer, I'm going to probably mess up his name, but I'll give it a shot, Eystein Guthansson. I'm assuming he's Icelandic. He actually sent me a really great site, and again, I'll put this in the video description, that you can use that actually does show this brand new recent lava flow. So there's a lot on this map. If you're an English speaker like I am, the first thing you might want to do is come over here to these three dots over on the right side, come down and select the Union Jack. That'll put it all in English for you. And then there's a lot of things selected here. So I'm going to take out the hazard zones, which is the colorful rectangles there. And then you can take out or keep as much as you want. I might take out the faults and the graben, but you can add these back in if you want to, and just maybe go with that. But what this nicely shows here is the actual extent of the lava field with some and this is aerial imagery. You can see the two most productive eruptive vents are shown with the red lines, and those are what they call here lava fissures. So you can take those out if you want, or you can add those back in. Lots of options here. This is actually a really nice little site that shows the topography, and it shows the extent of that flow field. So, and then you can also compare it to the Fagradalsfjall eruptive sites in 2021. The one up here in 2022. Let's see, 2021 was in this region, 2022 was there, and then the one this summer, 2023, was up here at this north end near Litli, this little hill on this side. So very nice. Again, you can add some of these things back in. I'll put this on the website, and you're free to play with that, but a nice little site that is very helpful. So thank you for sending that along. Appreciate it. Okay, a bit of news here. So the big news for the residents of Grindavik is that they've been allowed now to go back into their homes and stay overnight, at least through December 27th, when the whole situation will be reassessed. So for the next, I guess, 3 or 4 days, they've got the green light to occupy their homes through the evening. There's no curfew or evacuation period. Now, the only people being let into the town, of course, are residents. So that main road north out of town it's only emergency personnel and residents of Grindavik that are allowed into the town. I did communicate a little bit with Amanda Jo this morning. Her family they've already planned their Christmas over near the city, near Reykjavik, where they're staying in an apartment. So they're not planning on going back into the town just for Christmas. But for some people, I imagine this is good news. And this announcement probably was surprising to some, given some of the data we've looked at, like this, right? And so I want to be careful here and not overstep my bounds, because I am a scientist first and foremost. I am not a political scientist. I am not a elected official. So I'm going to try to be very neutral in how I go about this and not interject too much opinion or speculation into this. But apparently, given the fact that the eruption had ended, and in concert with the fact that there is, uplift and reinflation going on around the power plant, they've made this decision. And again, I'm not judging that decision. These people probably want to be back in their homes. Is there a risk here, though? Of course there is. But I think we get to a place when we just talk about anything, whether it's driving a car, flying a plane, riding a bicycle. I'm a rock climber. There's risk, and then there's acceptable risk. And acceptable risk can be a personal decision, right? It can be what you decide, in terms of benefit versus risk. If you decide the benefits outweigh the risk, or you're willing to accept the risks, then that's something what I would call an acceptable risk. And that can be different for each person. Some people have opted never to fly in an airplane because the risk of a plane crash is too much of a fear for them. Driving in a car comes with certain risks. Everything we do in life to some degree has risk, but acceptable risk is a personal decision, and it's up to each individual person. It gets tricky when you put yourself into a context of a civilization or a community, a society, and then you have government oversight into public safety, and then you have personal people deciding what is the acceptable risk for them. That's when it can become a little bit of a conflict, and liberties can be discussed and debated, I suppose. So there was another story about this gentleman here. So apparently there was some residents of Grindavik, not all, but some, that had worked with this gentleman who had at one point worked on the Supreme Court in Iceland, and they had actually filed a lawsuit against the country over the government's decision to keep them out of their house when they were evacuated for their home. And I'll put this link on there as well. Again, I'm going to leave this to other social scientists and people who are into political science, and that's not my specialty. But I found it interesting, and I certainly could be, I'm open to learning about it and hearing other perspectives. So it's tricky. It gets down to freedoms, at what point does the government have some jurisdiction over public safety? And at what point does personal decisions regarding one's safety, where do those lines meet, and can they be crossed? So I'll just kind of leave that at that for now, because it's obviously a topic that I don't have expertise in, and I'm not super comfortable. But it's probably worth having a conversation about on some level. Hopefully a civil discussion amongst people who can respectfully look at other perspectives. So good news for some of those folks, but we still have a risk here. We are not done with this eruptive cycle. We still have data that suggests that more could happen moving forward. So let me wrap up here. And again, this is a brief one with some sketches. So if you were with me on December 7th, this was my little cartoon sketch that I put together. And I had a previous series before that, but I don't think we need to go all the way back and look at those. So on December 7th, this of course was, I guess a good 11 days before the eruption, we had uplift beneath the power plant. And questions that I had asked at that time was, well, what's going to happen? That this was not a sustainable situation, that the ground cannot keep rising beneath the power plant without something happening in the long run. And so the question was, would this magma body, as it was inflating and repressurizing, was it going to find a path to the west, maybe follow some of these fractures? That's what these black lines are over here that feed this older set of craters called the Reservoir craters. Was it going to erupt right through the area above the power plant? Or was it going to come back to the east, as it did on November 10th, when the magma actually moved in this direction, formed this sill and dike underneath the Sunnugigar craters, and maybe follow some of these fractures here. Now, that event on November 10th never actually got to the surface, but we had all the earthquake swarms, lots of activity there, and that's when maybe this situation, other than the eruption, reached its crescendo. So this is just taking you back to what we had seen on that day. And now we're in a very different situation. At this point too, we'd also talked about, was this magma completely cooled and solidified? Was it kind of just a hot mush? Was it starting to cool and solidify? How thick the actual and the geometry of that magma? That was something that was unknown, and so we speculated and wondered. But now we know the outcome of this situation because we had the eruption on Monday. So we know that the path that the magma took, the path of least resistance, was that magma, once it became pressurized to that critical threshold, flowed to the east, pushed and broke through the last bit of rock it needed to make it to the surface, and created those spectacular lava fountains that we saw Monday night and into Tuesday. And those lava fountains rained down clots of lava onto the surface. Those fed lava flows that emanated and flowed away from the eruptive site, a little bit more to the east than to the west, but we saw some individual lobes of that in that area. And so that was the situation there. We also saw that taking place with that eruptive event was a deflation. So the power plant area actually dropped, I think it was maybe 30 centimeters or something like that. That might be a little bit high. I can't remember the exact number, but we actually saw the elevation drop in that area. And now what we have is we're kind of back to this, right? We're back to inflation. Possibly it could erupt in other locations, but now that we know what's happened this week, it would seem most likely that this would be the path that the magma takes moving forward. That doesn't mean it will, so I'm not making a prediction, but if we were to forecast where this magma might erupt next, I think most folks would agree that an eruption at or near the existing eruptive sites that we saw on Monday would seem to make the most sense. There's apparently something about the area under the power plant that it's a little bit stronger. It's not the easiest path for the magma to take to break through, and the magma seems to be taking advantage of these older fracture systems from these older crater systems that exist in the area, at least over here at this one. So here's the vertical or nearly vertical dike, the conduit of magma that brings the lava up to the surface. This more horizontal oriented magma body is what they've been calling the sill. So I wanted to put these words on there because those are some labels you have heard over the last few weeks. So hopefully this is helpful though. So this is where we were earlier this week, but essentially we're turning back into this situation where we've got the uplift going on. The magma reservoir is being recharged with fresh magma. Those dissolved gases are what is really going to drive the eruption. That's what's going to provide the pressure for this system to erupt at some point. So it's anyone's guess as to when that might occur. If you move back to this here, you could probably, as well as I could, take a rough best fit line through this 4 or 5 days of data and extrapolate that outward and get a rough idea as to when we might see that eruption. And it's probably a good, I don't know, 5 days to 8 days out. It really just depends. This thing might go up and down a little bit. The trend doesn't need to be linear. So we're probably looking at the next few days of not much happening as the system continues to recharge. Christmas should be quiet, I would expect, just based on the data in Grindavik. But as we get into the New Year's holiday, 7, 8, 9 days from now, it could look very different, and we could be back to where we were about a week ago. And so it's exciting, it's interesting to look at, but we also have to consider the human impact as well. And I do feel for the folks in Grindavik, because it's just, and the public officials too, like you couldn't pay me enough to be over there and deal with this, because it's almost like you can't win. If you evacuate everyone, then there's some repercussions from that. If you let everyone stay in town, then you've got to worry about possibly people losing their lives and their homes if something were to happen quickly. But I suppose what we're really looking at here is, it doesn't seem as likely now that we'll get an eruption right under the town. And around November 10th, that was something that was still on the table. So right now, it seems the most likely event is something like we just saw, something east of the power plant in this region, which is several kilometers upslope from Grindavik. And so it's possible that there's more eruptions here, more lava fills in this area, and doesn't impact the town. But we are close enough to the town, and the topography is just, it's just subtle enough that we could get something spilling down towards the town. So only time will tell. That's why we're all kind of glued to this thing. It's drama playing out in real time. So with that, I'll go ahead and close for today. But thanks so much for joining me. Hope this has been helpful. Hopefully what I share with you is educational. I'm learning as well as you. So when I say things like team, I really mean that we're learning together, that we're exploring the Earth's processes and its landforms together, and then trying to learn from them, because I just find it fascinating. I will make sure I have a couple videos over the next week, probably not Iceland updates, but I'll put out a few other things that I've got in the hopper, so that you have a little bit of content and a little bit of geology education. Maybe you can share that with your families over the holidays. Maybe, if you've had too much of the guests in your house, you can lock yourself in the closet and take a little geology break, which might help you a little bit too. So anyway, I'm rambling here, so I'll just shut it down. Thanks so much again for joining me. I appreciate all your support. Have a great one, and we'll see you soon. Take care.